What if I told you there's a single, powerful mental model that connects everything, from the bacteria in your gut to your ability to be thriving at age 100? Well, today we're going to dive into a unified theory of fitness called the Ouroboros Protocol. It reframes exercise not as some chore you have to do, but as the master key to regulating your entire biology. All right, so to really get this, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start at the end. Let's begin with a pretty radical new goal for fitness, one that honestly changes the entire game. So yeah, forget about the beach body for a second. This is the big question. What if the game we're really playing isn't about our performance next month, but about what's called our health span? You know, the number of years you live in a high-functioning, totally capable state. What does it actually take to win that game?
And this is what makes that big idea real. These are the events in what you might call the Centenarian Olympics. And notice, it's not about running a marathon, right? It's about these practical, everyday things that really define true independence. This isn't vanity training. This is training for freedom.
Okay, so how do we actually train for that 100-year game? Well, we have to understand the powerful systems that are working under the hood. And that journey starts in a place you might not expect at all, your gut.
You know, we usually think of our gut bacteria as, well, just kind of there, right? Passive passengers along for the ride. But the science now is showing that they're an active, adaptive organ. Seriously, they aren't just digesting your food, they are literally co-piloting your motivation to move by producing the very chemicals that make exercise feel good.
And here's how it works. It's this amazing feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle. You exercise, and that encourages the good bacteria to thrive. Then they send signals to your brain to release reward chemicals like dopamine. That makes the exercise feel good, so you're more likely to do it again. The takeaway here is huge. Exercise literally builds its own motivation, and it starts right there in your gut.
So we've gone from the gut. Now let's go even deeper, all the way down to your genes. Think of your DNA as your body's fixed hardware. Well, exercise is like a software update. That's the science of epigenetics. It doesn't change your actual DNA code, but it changes how that code is read. It's kind of like putting little sticky notes on certain genes, telling them to be more or less active. This creates what they call an epigenetic memory, teaching your body to be way more resilient to stress in the future.
Okay, so that's the science, right? But how do we actually use it? This brings us to the practical nuts and bolts design principles for building a body that's not just fit, but truly resilient and, injury-proof. And this right here is the key insight. You got to understand that these 4 rules, they aren't just a checklist. They are all deeply interconnected. Like the slide shows, if you fail in one area, say you have an imbalanced workout with way too much pushing and not enough pulling, that directly causes a failure in another area. It creates a strength asymmetry, and that asymmetry, well, that's the single biggest predictor of getting hurt. So this table, it basically gives us the playbook for building smarter, safer workouts. We train for symmetry using exercises that work one side at a time. We get balance by making sure we match our pushing and pulling movements. We build unity with those big compound lifts that force the whole body to work together. And then you've got the paradox. To become more stable, you actually have to train with controlled instability. All right, we've got the rules. But now let's talk about the engine that actually makes the car go. It's this dynamic cycle of applying stress on purpose, and then, and this is just as important, giving the body time to adapt and get stronger from it. And this is where things get a little, well, paradoxical. It's the whole less is more thing. We're all wired to think more work always equals more results. But the real magic, the actual gains, happen when you strategically rest. Your fatigue drops way faster than your fitness, and that reveals a new, higher baseline of strength. That is when you actually get stronger. And there's a name for this, a real biological process. It's called supercompensation. The workout itself just provides the signal for change. The actual growth, the supercompensation, that happens when you recover, which means planned recovery isn't just a nice idea. It's an absolutely essential, non-negotiable part of making any progress. But here's the catch. This amazing adaptation, it's not going to happen on its own. To trigger that supercompensation, we have to apply stress intentionally and systematically. It's the principle of progressive overload. Gradually making your workouts a little tougher over time, whether it's adding weight or reps or just difficulty. You have to give your body a reason to change. So how do you know? how do you know if you're rested enough to push hard again? This is where modern data comes in. Heart rate variability, or HRV, measures the tiny little variations in time between your heartbeats, and it acts just like a simple traffic light for your nervous system. A high HRV is a green light. You're recovered and ready to go. A low HRV? That's a red light. Your body is telling you it's overloaded and you need to prioritize recovery. Okay, let's just take a breath. We've talked about gut health, epigenetics, the 4 pillars of resilience, stress, recovery. It's a lot, right? How on earth are we supposed to manage all of this in the real world? Well, this is where we close that Ouroboros loop, by partnering up with technology. And this is what that partnership looks like. It's called the cognitive spiral, and it's basically a 4-step dance between you and the tech. It all starts with the human spark. That's you, defining the ultimate goal. Then AI amplifies your senses, analyzing all this complex data we can't see. Step 3 is the crucial part, your human insight. You take that data and you combine it with your real-life context, how you actually feel. And finally, the AI closes the loop, helping you refine the plan based on the results. Okay, let's make this super concrete. Imagine this. Your wearable AI tells you your HRV is in the red. It recommends a full rest day. But you, the human, provide the context. You say, yeah, I see that, but I know it's low because of a stressful deadline at work, not because of a hard workout. My muscles actually feel fine. So you make the final call. You override the AI and decide to do a light recovery session instead. The human is always the CEO. And this is so important. This isn't about letting a computer run your life. It's about using these incredible tools to have a smarter, data-informed conversation with your own body. It's about going from being a passive passenger to becoming the conscious co-author of your own biology.
So we've come full circle. This technology, this ability to perfectly understand our readiness each and every day, that's what makes training for something like the Centenarian Olympics actually possible. It lets us apply the exact right dose of stress and recovery. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. If you had that power, what incredible, long-term goal would you choose to train for?